Everybody, I'm Clyde, one of the Dharma leaders here at IMC Charlotte, and we got a lot of new people here, and I want to say welcome. Glad you're here. Let you know that this is a good time to say we are a nonprofit educational organization. You will hear me talking about the Buddha and his teachings from the Buddha, because that's what mindfulness and meditation are based on. And so we see the Buddha as a teacher. And I want to welcome everyone and welcome everybody on Zoom also. Well, tonight, I'm going to be talking about patience. And over the last couple of months, I noticed my patience has kind of gone away. I don't know about y'all, but the first thing was like, I go to the gym and I go to the gym at an odd time. There's usually hardly anybody there. Well, over the past couple of months with people on vacation, the kids home from school, people were on my machine. All right, this is my machine. You're not supposed to be on it. You get over here. Wait around. Okay. And then, obviously, a lot of people notice a lot more traffic now. So wherever I wanted to go, took longer to go. This person in front of me, they don't know what they're doing. They need to get out of the way. My impatience was there. I'm definitely an impatient cook. If it takes more than 15 minutes or we can't go in the microwave, forget about it. It's not going to happen. And I've learned that I love to garden. I'm starting to garden. I have to redo parts back of my yard. And I want to put in all these perennials. I used to have annuals and perennials, and they're pollinators. And I put a bunch in this year, and they did, they don't do really a whole lot this year. But then they kind of die down. And I'm like going, well, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to come back? And I said, I'm not going to wait all the way till next year, next spring, to see what comes up. Did they make it or not make it? And I'm pretty impatient about this. And also, if I don't know about y'all, but during the past couple of months, we live in an impatient society. How many Amazon trucks came by your house over the past 2 months? How many FedEx trucks came by? We want it right then. We want it right now. Computers, texting, all this is we're impatient. If we don't get it, we want it now. So we live in an impatient society. So that's me. I want you to take a moment, think about your day or your past few days and say, have you been impatient? Have you seen impatience arising within you anytime in the past few days? Just think about it for a moment. Have you been patient with yourself, with friends, with the computer? And so I was reading Ajahn Chah. He's one of the teachers in our lineage, his book on being Dharma during this time also, and he's talking about our meditation practice. And he said this about our meditation practice. It comes down to practicing patient endurance. It is said that patience is the mother of all Dharma. If you're new here, Dharma are the teachings, they're the way things are. You'll hear that word a lot, Dharma. He said, patience is the mother of all Dharma. So I thought, given I've been looking at patience, I said, well, let me look into this. What do the teachings say about patience? Is it a part of our practice? I always knew it was kind of there, this quality, this virtue, but I never did. You kind of know what it is, so I didn't pay much attention to it. Yeah, we know what patience is. So I started looking into it as far as what's in the teachings. And first of all, it's one of the 10 paramis, or one of the 10 perfections. And these are wholesome qualities of character that practitioners are encouraged to cultivate. Generosity, equanimity, virtue, wisdom, and patience is one of these. Guy Armstrong says, one of the beautiful features of the paramis, in contrast, say, to the 7 factors of enlightenment, is that these qualities can be developed in daily life as well as on retreat. So we can develop these in our daily life. While cultivation of the paramis does not disregard one's own spiritual development, they are primarily oriented toward being of benefit to others. So patient can be a benefit not only to myself, but to others. So I figured, and I knew it was one of the paramis. When I kept looking, I noticed in the Maha Mangala Sutta, which was the teachings, that talks about life's, it gives some of life's highest blessings. Patience is shown as one of life's highest blessings. The Dhammapada says that patience that is enduring is the best discipline. And I always go back to the Tao Te Ching sometimes, which kind of came before the Buddha. And it had a couple of things in there. It says, do you have the patience to wait till your mind settles and the water is clear? That describes our meditation practice. Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? It says, patience with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. The most important one, though, is Bhikkhu Bodhi. He says, among the techniques deployed against anger. Now, anger is one of the, what we call one of the three defilements. There's greed, anger, will, and delusion. So those are the three defilements. He says, one of the techniques deployed against anger, among them stands one cardinal virtue, patience. Both the means for curing the mind of anger and the quality that prevails when anger has finally been subdued. Talks about patience. I'm going to give you 3 examples from the teachings. And these are pretty drastic examples of patience. And the first one comes from what they call the Jataka tales. Now, these I haven't done much with, but these are tales that the Buddha told before he was enlightened, and they're kind of like moral tales. So you kind of look at it that way. But when I was looking at patience, they kept saying, well, patience is important because of this Jataka tale. It's called the teacher of patience. And I'm trying to paraphrase it for you. And this all happened before the Buddha became enlightened, became the Buddha. He was a bodhisattva. And he was an ascetic living in the Himalayas. He came down to the city one time to get some salt and vinegar, and he slept in the royal park. And while he was there, the commander-in-chief was impressed by the bodhisattva's demeanor, and he says, I'll help support you while you're standing here in the royal park. Then one day, while the bodhisattva was staying there, the king got drunk, went into the park with his harem, his dancing girls and his singers, and they were having a party. He fell asleep. The party went around. They found the bodhisattva, said, could you give us a teaching? He said, sure. Well, then the king woke up and he was really mad because all his party was gone somewhere. Grabbing his sword, he went off to get them and punished the bodhisattva. When the king found them, he asked the bodhisattva, what was the sermon about? Patience. He said, one should not get angry even if someone insults or abuses you. And the king said, well, let's see if you practice what you preach. And he got his executioner. The executioner had him flogged 2,000 times with a whip made of thorns. With the bodhisattva covered in blood, the king asked what his lesson was. Bodhisattva once again answered patience, adding that his own patience was not skin deep, it was in his heart. So the king continued to torture him. He had the executioner cut off his hands, his feet, his nose, his ears. Through it all, the bodhisattva showed perfect patience and did not get angry. Finally, the king kicked him and went off. And he didn't get very far before the earth opened up and pulled him down into hell, just to let you know. When the king was gone, the commander-in-chief took care of the bodhisattva. The commander-in-chief took care of the bodhisattva. He praised the bodhisattva's patience and asked if he was angry at the king. The bodhisattva said, no, pure souls like his disregard all evil deeds. The bodhisattva died the next day. So that's a moral tale. But I kept getting referred to that one. If we go to the suttas from the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha said, and some of you have probably heard this one before, monks, even if bandits were to sever you savagely, limb by limb, with a two-handled saw, he who gave rise to a mind of hate toward them would not be carrying out my teaching. Herein, monks, you should train thus. Our minds will remain unaffected, and we will utter no evil words. We shall abide compassionate for their welfare with a mind of loving kindness without inner hate. So even loving kindness, it takes a lot of patience if someone's sawing you to give loving kindness to them. That starts with patience. Loving kindness starts with patience. And the last one, this is also from the Majjhima Nikaya. The Venerable Sariputta was talking to monks. He said, and this one's going to get a little bit detailed, but I'll clear it up at the end. If others abuse, revile, scold, or harass a monk, he understands. This painful feeling born of ear contact has arisen within me. That is dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. Feeling, contact's impermanent. Feelings impermanent. Perceptions impermanent. Volitional activities impermanent. And consciousness is impermanent. And his mind, that he acquires confidence, steadfastness, and resolution. What that is saying is that he was talking about the five aggregates of cleaning, but they're all dependent and they're all impermanent. Impermanence is one of the factors of existence. If it's impermanent, it's all based on impermanence. If someone says something to me, it's just contact, it's impermanent. Knowing that it's impermanent, I don't have to get angry. I can be patient. So the idea of impermanence helps support our impatience. So based on this, it seems like patience is a pretty important quality of our practice to start with, and we can practice it on the cushion and off the cushion. Patient has the characteristics of acceptance or abiding. Its function is to endure the undesirable and the desirable. That sounds a little bit like equanimity. Its manifestation is tolerance and non-opposition, as demonstrated in the examples. Its proximate cause is to see things as they really are. And that's our meditation practice. The more we practice, the more we see the way things are, the more we can be patient. Thanissaro Bhikkhu explains it this way. He says, we can see this in the way the Buddha taught Rahula. Rahula was his son, how to meditate. He started with the issue of patience. Meditate, he says, so that your mind is like the earth. Disgusting things get thrown on the earth, but the earth isn't horrified by them. When you make your mind like the earth, neither agreeable nor disagreeable sensory impressions will take charge of it. He goes on to say that the Buddha wasn't telling Rahula to become a passive clod of dirt. He was teaching Rahula to be grounded, to develop his powers of endurance, so that he didn't have to be able, so he'd be able to observe both pleasant and painful events in his body and mind without becoming engrossed in the pleasure or blown away by the pain. This is what patience is for. It helps you to sit with things until you understand them well enough to respond to them skillfully. You learn to sit with things until you understand them well enough to respond to them skillfully. And we talked about wholesome and unwholesome actions, intentions. That's what patience helps us do. And if you'll be patient with me for a moment. I'll open another one. I don't know if it'll do any good. We may have a short Dharma talk tonight. So how can we help? How can we develop this patience, this virtue? We can think about impermanence. That driver is going to get out of the way eventually. I'm going to get where I'm going to be eventually. Things arise, things pass away. It's not permanent. I can be patient with it. We also need to remember that they're impermanent because they're conditioned. Everything's conditioned. Everything arises and passes away based on conditions. And sometimes it takes a while for these conditions to come into play. It takes a while for them to happen, to come together. An example of that would be my garden. I've done all I can for these plants. I put them in there, I've watered them, I've fertilized them. Conditions have to come together for them to come together. And some may come up this year, some may not come up till next year. I have to be patient for those conditions to come together. You can reflect upon some of these examples. You know, if you get impatient, is someone sawing you in two or cutting your nose off? Think about that. That's what they're there for. They were moral teachings. But probably the most important one is your mindfulness. This is important, so I want to get this done. Notice that your impatience is arising within you. Come back to your breath. Come back to your present moment. You notice your impatience is here. Come back to your breath. That's what I do. If I'm sitting in traffic, you know, I see you get patience. All this is coming up. I come back. This moment's like this. This moment's like this. This moment's like this. And I can be with it. I can be with this breath. I can be with this moment, no matter what's happening. And I can see the breath. I can see the impatience. And that helps me to be patient. So that's probably the most important thing to develop our patience. So we want to be patient, but we want to be patient with the results, not with our practice. We want to be diligent in our practice. We want to be diligent in the practice and patient with the results. They take time. So if you're new, if you're experienced, sometimes your practice is going well and sometimes it's not. If you're new to this, be diligent in your practice. Be patient with your results. And Bhikkhu Bodhi says, liberation is the inevitable fruit of the path, and it's bound to blossom. Fourth, when there is steady and persistent practice. The only requirements for reaching the final goal to start and to continue. And that takes us back to all John saying, our meditation is this patient endurance. Thank you.